Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome back to an Hour of Need. This will be part 2 of the base game. Part 1, we went over the basic idea of how to play the game and some of the elements of the game, although we'll continue to go over them as they appear for some of the other cards and the villains. So the first video, we also went over the base components and the 4 different heroes that you can play as. This video, we are going to go over the villains and the different issues. So let's jump into this. So our first villain we're going to look at is, let's flip over to this side, is we have Doiger. So here she is, little miniature. So then they're all gonna have, villains are gonna have 2 sides. Their side is the steaming side, which starts off, she just has 1 attack. What's 1 inflict, rather. She has no special setup, no special rules. Some of them have different abilities, or they need certain cards in play. And then she has 5 problems per player. So you need to add that many tokens on her to flip her over from steaming. And then once you do, and you reveal her, there are also going to be hidden tokens, which we mentioned in the first video, which also have to be uncovered before you can start doing stuff with the villain. But then they go to their showdown side, which will add extra effects on various cards they have. She has Send My Regards. She has 15 health per player, 1 defense. So if you roll 3 successes, you're only going to do 2 damage. She'll automatically block 1 of every damage, no matter what. And then she has 3 inflict, so it goes way up. The little skull icon is the, I forgot what it's called. It's the, I think it's the threat icon. Yes, the threat icon. Which just means if you get a card that says that, you draw the card, or if you flip over this villain, it goes to your character's threat area. It's just a reminder that that's where it goes. So then that way every turn when you have to activate your threats, you will activate this particular card. And her threat is inflict targeting each hero within 4 spaces of her. So wherever she is on the board, she will do 3 damage to whoever's within 4 spaces of her. Then let's look at her cards. So the back of their cards will all be this kind of like the hero cards, which will be a full art picture to help keep their decks separate. So we're going to get some minions here. We have the Stooge, who's a lackey. 8 health, 0 defense, 2 inflict. He has Thump 'em. Activate, move 3, and inflict. And then we will get the Wigglemaker, who has Peril. 4 problem solve, Wise Guy's Legacy. When this card is discarded, return any bystander on it to the supply. Activate. If there's a bystander on this card, defeat that bystander and discard this card. Otherwise, move 1 bystander from the supply to this card. Yeah, so basically you're trying to blow up bystanders. Bystanders die, bad things happen, so we don't want that to do that. Now, so there's going to be 4 versions of these cards. So we're going to have another 2, which are going to be red. So you have blue, red, green, and yellow. So those are our different icons that were on our board. Basically saying if you draw this card, that's where the characters are summoned, or what they're going to interact with is one of those 4 different spaces. So each villain generally has 2 of the same type of cards. Usually it's a henchman and then like a card that goes with them. They'll interact with those specific spaces. Then we will also get multiple copies of a lot of the same other character cards, but they're going to have symbols on them. So here's the Widow's Trail, which is a ploy. So this has a showdown effect. So the showdown effect is only going to activate if you're fighting the villain in their showdown mode. But then when you draw a play card, you activate stuff with the different icons. So this has a blue icon and a bystander. So the colored one says for each minion icon in play, the active hero places 1 minion on the corresponding Steam panel. If no minions remain, the supply must resolve usher up any single minion play card in their villain area and a crisis occurs. So basically you gotta try and play one. If you can't, then you have to resolve one of the play cards that they've drawn. So it's like this. So if I play this card, then I would have to place a minion, and then if I can't, then bad things happen. It's basically what happens. And then if I'm in the showdown, other stuff. The other symbol on there's a bystander. So for each bystander icon, that's a little white guy there. Active hero must place one bystander from supplying empty space. If each bystander space is occupied by either a bystander or another figure, it is captured and placed on the nearest scheme panel. If no bystanders remain, then you resolve a crisis. Basically, you don't want to resolve crises. There's a couple different ways to do that, and we'll go over that in just a moment. When I can show up what, because that has to do with the issues. But yeah, so this will be a different thing that's going to do. If you are in the showdown with the villain, you activate its effects. As after this attack, you must discard a parallel card from play. If you do, move 3 spaces away from Doiger and then suffer 4 damage. Otherwise, search the villain deck and discard pile for a copy of Wigglemaker and shuffle it into play in the villain's shuffle the deck. So it'll do an attack, and then it wants you to discard that Wigglemaker as a guy at the bomb, which will blow up a bystander as well. And then you move 3 spaces away, basically you get blown away for 4 damage. You get blown back. If not, then it's setting that card up. So we're going to get multiple others of these, one with a red, a yellow X, and the green circle. So multiple copies just activating the different stuff. And lots of the villain cards have that same thing. So our next different one will be Have a Piece, which has this little skull icon. So it says for each special play icon, the active hero resolves a special effect on the card. So if it has this, then they'll activate their special effect. If they're not in Showdown, then you ignore the bottom. If you're in Showdown, you do that. So it's kind of the way these cards work, so that they can have multiple different effects. So basically you'll activate the blue minion, and then you'll do the special effect. It says you may discard 1 clue card if you do not or cannot Doiger inflicts you. And then if you are in Showdown with her, then she immediately does another inflict. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting, and then it'll be the same thing. Not every card's going to necessarily have all the symbols. We're going to also have some like these that are a little bit more powerful, which have yellow and green, or blue and red. So we get some differences there. Her next different card is going to be Murderous Intent, which has a globe on it, which is our 4th different symbol, other than the 4 shapes. For each cunning ploy icon, which is the globe, the villain either schemes or inflicts the active hero. The active hero may choose which effect to resolve for the cunning ploy. So, if there's a shape, you activate minions. If there's a bystander, you put bystanders. If there's a special icon, you do that. If there's a globe thing, then it's just the villain doing one of their villain things. Says Showdown, after this attack, you must exhaust one of your constant cards in play or suffer 4 damage. And then we're going to have just the different ones with the different shapes on it. So I'm going to set these guys down here. So the other thing you might have noticed on these cards is in the bottom right corner, there's a little player symbol. So what that is for how many, for when you're playing a game, setting up the deck. So if you're playing one hero, you're playing a solo game, it says you're going to move each villain card that has the 1 player symbol on there. So if you're removing that, you're going to take out this one because it's just too powerful, basically, for a single player to deal by themselves. And then these other ones we had the 5-6 player, which says if there are exactly 5 or 6 players in a game, remove each villain card that has a 5 or 6 scaling indicator from the game. So this is kind of saying this might be too either too easy or It'll activate too many times with 5 or 6 players. I'm not really sure what the point of that is. Or maybe it's too broad of a thing and they want to narrow down to the ones that do more damage. If you're playing with 2, 3, or 4, then you just play the game as normal. That's those little icons there mean. So she has Loyal Crew, which you're going to have the 4 different symbols. And then you're going to say Showdown. The enemy nearest you, other than Doiger, immediately moves 3 spaces toward you. During this attack, Doiger gains +1 defense for each enemy adjacent to you. And then she's going to have 2 copies of Call the Boys. And I consider this, she only has 2, so one has green, one has blue. So she doesn't get all 4 colors for this one. It's special. If there are no Stooge in play, search the villain deck and discard pile for 1 Stooge. Draw it. Shuffle the discard pile back into the deck. Otherwise, each Stooge activates. And then just a little flavor text. And then they have, most villains usually have 1 single card, which is kind of like their signature card. And hers is Ruthless Ambition. So you have the 3 different symbols. It says, if Doiger is steaming, a crisis occurs. Otherwise, she inflicts each hero, and each hero discards 1 constant card from their play area. She's pretty straightforward, which makes sense for the first villain. Then our second villain is going to be Curtains. So here is Curtains. She's got some different masks. He shows a sword on there. Unfortunately, he doesn't carry a sword with him. But that's alright. Alright, so Curtains. 3 inflict breathless. He has more there, but he has 10 per player. And then setup. Create the focus token supply with only 5 tokens per player. Then return the rest to the box. So now you're going to be limited in how many focus tokens you can use. And since each player can only have 5 stored, if you start storing all 5, then you're not going to have any extra sitting around to be like used later on. Because you could gain more than 5, you just only have 5 at the end of a turn. Like you could, examples, if I have 5 already and I gain 3, I could spend my 5 quick to flip my character over and then keep my other 3. Special, heroes cannot gain focus tokens from this card. Each time any amount of justice would be placed on this card, discard 1 focus from this card if able to reduce the amount of justice placed by 2. So he's going to keep trying to keep himself alive. Now the Showdown, he has 10 health per player, so less than Doiger, but he also has 2 defense. Dramatic Flare. Each time any amount of damage will be placed on this card, discard 1 focus if able, reduce the amount of damage by 2. Activate. Deal each hero within 4 spaces of a peril token 3 damage. Each hero that did not suffer damage from this effect moves 1 of their focus to this card. Alright, then he's going to have his lackeys, which will be a stagehand. So has 6 health, 1 defense, 3 casting call. Move 4 towards the nearest bystander on the map. If unable to, inflict the nearest hero within 5 spaces. Of stagehand, then move. Show off the back of his card. And then he has Curtain Call, which is a peril with a 5 problem. Theater Tricks. If this peril enters a villain space, discard this card and the villain steams. Activate. Deal 1 focus. If unable, this peril moves 3 spaces towards the villain. And then you'll have these different colors of those. They're all the same, so I'm not going to read through all of them. And then he's got his Craving an Audience with the 4 different symbols, which is ploy and a special. If no bystanders are captured, Curtain capture the bystanders nearest him. Otherwise, Curtain gains 1 focus from the supply if able. And then Showdown, you cannot spend focus during this attack. This next card is going to be Encore. She's got 4 regular ones, he's got some double ones. Says Curtain gains 1 focus from a supply. If unable, Curtain discards 1 of his focus to Steam if able. Showdown, move 1 of your focus to Curtains or he immediately inflicts you, dealing +1 damage for each peril in play. It's got Showstopper. Play, Curtain gains 1 focus from a supply for each peril in play. If no peril is in play, draw the topmost peril card of the villain discard instead. Denouncement. You must either move 1 focus from a supply to the villain card or Curtain inflicts you. Showdown, the enemy other than Curtain nearest you moves 3 towards you and inflicts. If unable, inflict, that enemy immediately activates. Just as a clarification on the word enemy, an enemy is basically any bad guy. It can be the villain, it can be a lackey, it can be a minion, or it can be a nemesis. Just as long as it's not one of the heroes, it's considered to be an enemy. And we got 2 copies of The Show Must Go On. Move 1 focus from a supply to the villain for each lackey in play. If no lackey is in play, search the villain deck for a copy of Stagehand and draw it. Showdown, Curtain gains +1 defense value for each focus he has during this attack. And then we have his big one, he has Plot Twist. For each constant card in your hero's play area, you must either move 1 of your focus to Curtain or discard a constant card from your play area. Alright, so he's got some interesting stuff there. Alright. So the other thing we're going to look at really quick is we do got 4 of each of the Stooges. The little crowbar. And we got 4 of the Stagehands. So you can get little minis for those guys, because they're going to be in every time you fight one of the villains. And just to keep an eye on them. Alright, up next we have our 4 different whatchamacallits, issues. Forgot what they were called. Century Heist is where we're going to start. And then the cards are going to have their issue overviews. This kind of what it does, and it's going to have special setups. I'm not going to sit here. I guess I'll read through them. As I say, maybe I wouldn't, but I think we're going to end up with a lot of the same type of cards. So, setup is remove the vault from the issue deck, place it in the issue play area, sealed side up. So that'll be this card here. Specials. After the hero attacks the villain, may discard 1 per player justice token from the vault to return 1 issue token from the villain card to the vault. If there are ever 3 issue tokens on this card, the villain has escaped with the gold and the hero loses. So yeah, basically they're trying to steal gold, and we gotta keep trying to prevent it, is what you're trying to do. So then we have the vault, which is sealed. This card ever has at least 3 issue tokens on it. Discard all tokens from it, and then flip. So when the bad guy steams, you can try and put tokens. Then we have Crisis at the bottom, which says place 1 issue token on this card. So crises are figured out in multiple ways. There can be a card that just says create a crisis. If you ever are told to place a minion or a bystander and you can't, you'll activate a crisis, which is why you can't just ignore them. So when you're going around the map, whether it's the city or the building or whatever, you want to be trying to solve problems to get, stop the villain from scheming and doing that stuff. But you also need to deal with their henchmen and their minions, because if you don't get rid of them, and they keep spawning, you'll cause crises, which will activate this, which helps that. And you also need to be rescuing bystanders. So it's kind of that thing of like, you as a group, you might need to split up to do multiple things. Working as a team to try and complete stuff. But it also just gives you a little bit more, again, makes the game feel more lived in. I kind of said that in the first video, like where you're going around versus like Marvel Champions, where you're trying to stop the hero from scheming, and you're fighting guys that are against you. Lots of the same idea, but because you're just sort of sitting there, it doesn't feel as like you're interacting as much. Because you're just like, I play a card and did this, but here you have to move around the board. In that sense, it almost feels a little bit more like Marvel Legendary, because there's a board with villains on different spaces. So depending on what space they're on or what you're trying to do or prevent them from moving somewhere else, you're interacting more with the cards on the board versus just doing damage. And that's one thing. The other way you can do crises is if your character's ever KO'd. So if you ever take too much damage, basically you have to, shuffle your deck back up, and then activate a crisis, so bad things will happen, and at the beginning of your next turn you can resurrect your character. So you're not out of the game ever if you lose, but you're advancing the plot, the bad things even quicker. So you don't want to just do it. Then if we open the vault, it says this card split, place 3 issue tokens on. These are gold bars that the villain uses to escape crisis. You must either move 1 issue token from this to the villain, or move 1 issue token from the villain card to the issue overview card. So either basically if a crisis happens, either they can steal it or they can get away. So that's what they're trying to do. They need to get stuff to open this with 3 crises, and then they can try and steal from it, and then they can try and get away. So you have a couple different things there. So then we're going to have our other double-sided ones. We're going to start with the colored X's. These are the 4 different symbols on the outside of the map, or 4 different spaces. So this is if they're in the subway tunnel. These are probably not in the right order. So I'm going to actually pull this back off. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll actually look at these in the order they are on the board for activation. So I start the abandoned warehouse. So it's going to have 10 up here, and it's going to have that icon with the hidden. So when you defeat the enemies, this is how you reveal the villains. You can end up fighting them and doing stuff with them. So that's called the reveal icon. A reminder that knowing the villain is solved, or the scheme is solved, 1 hidden token is discarded from the villain card. So you gotta solve this. You gotta solve all 4 schemes to be able to fight the villain. So you can't just take them out immediately. So this just says activate, place 1 minion in the Century Bank. And then this has that little icon that only goes there when you go to that area. So if you head to the red icon, then you put this on your area and it activates against you. Alright, then we also have here is an enemy. So we have Lox Lee. She has 10 health, 1 defense, and 2 inflict. When this enemy this card is flipped to the side, plays Lox Lee on the map in the City Bank Steam space, so he has a little token that we can use. Actually, then the villain schemes. Activate. If the vault is on the sealed side, place 1 issue token on it. Otherwise, move 3 towards the nearest hero and inflict. So, during these, you're also going to get other enemies that are maybe it's like the villain is trying to steam and do their stuff, and complete this issue, but you have other enemies that are just directly involved with this. Then we have the Century Bank, which has 12 problem. Hostages. Activate, move one bystander from the map to Century Bank. And if we flip that open, we have the Abductor. 7 health, X defense, 2 inflict. When this card is flipped to the side, place the Abductor on the exclusive edition newspaper Steam space. X equals the number of captured bystanders. Activate, move one bystander from the map to the exclusive news edition, then inflict the nearest hero the executive news edition. And then we go to that one. We have the exclusive edition news. Manufactured hysteria. Activate. If there are 4 bystanders on this map, a crisis occurs. And we have Gabby Woods, a bystander reporter. When this card is flipped to the side, place one bystander with Gabby Woods on the map if able. While captured, Gabby Woods cannot be rescued. If this card is solved, she is discarded instead. Activate. If Gabby Woods is captured, a crisis occurs. Then finally, we have the subway tunnel. Activate if there's at least 1 minion in the subway tunnel, the villain steams. Otherwise, place 1 minion on the subway tunnel. And then stop the train. This card flip, place 1 issue token in the villain steam space. If this is the train stop. A hero may only solve this problem when near the train stop. Just wherever the villain's at, you put that there, and then that's where they're trying to get to. Activate. If the villain is near the train stop, they steam. Otherwise, move the train stop to the villain's steaming space. Just gonna keep moving along. Alright, then we're gonna get some regular cards. We're gonna have 2 copies of Panicked Guards. If the bulk is on a sealed side, place 1 issue token on it if able, otherwise the villain steams. 2 copies of Desperate Escape. If the villain is in the subway tunnel, a crisis occurs, otherwise the villain steams. 2 copies of Lox's Cunning. If Lox's token is in play, he inflicts each hero, otherwise the villain steams. 2 copies of Reporting Live. If Gabby Wood's token is in play, the villain captures her. If she's already captured, a crisis occurs or the villain steams. And just a crisis card. So this is like a common card that's in all the decks. It's just straight up saying what they're going to do. So a villain steam, because all them cards mention that. So some causing a villain to steam. The villain is on the map and is not in a steam space when they steam for any reason. Resolve the steam effect on the steam panel nearest to them. Some steam effects will result in the villain advancing. When the villain advances, they move to the next steam panel. If the villain card is on a showdown side in numerical order. Here should be careful. Each time a villain advances, they get closer to their overall goal. And then the steaming effect is what is on the board itself. Let me grab one of those. So I'm just going to look at whatever one's here. So this isn't for this particular mission. This is for volume 36. But so in the villain steam is going to say for this one, this is what you're going to do. If there are 3 or more issue tokens on the steam panel, the villain advances. Otherwise, place 1 issue token on the steam panel. So that's what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to steam on whatever mission they're at, and they start at 1 and then they'll move to 2, then 3 to 4. So they steam wherever they already are or whatever's closest to them. Alright, so that was Century Heist. Alright, up next we have Making Waves, our second issue. So this is kind of a setup. It says remove cargo from the issue deck and place it on the issue play area. Loading side up. Place one issue token on the Steam space. These are dock workers. Special rule: the tokens on the map on the dock workers. See issue guide about water spaces. During the turn, heroes may discard one per player justice from cargo to discard one issue token from their Steam panel. Each time an active dock worker moves to a Steam space, flip it to its inactive side and place one issue token on that Steam panel. Issue tokens on this card and the Steam panels represent cargo. If there are ever 4 cards on this, the heroes lose. So there's cargo loading. Each time a dock worker enters a crate space which is on the board, flip the dock worker to its active side. So just be a little token for those guys. Over time, each active dock worker moves one space towards the Steam nearest it. Then each inactive dock worker moves one space towards the crate space near crisis. Move one issue token from the Steam to the overview. Then resolve overtime effect on this card. And if we flip that over, it'll say cargo departure. Each time a dock worker enters a crate space, flip that dock worker to its active side. The villain is treated as a dock worker when resolving this card's overtime effect. Place an inactive issue token on the villain card to track when they become active and inactive. Over time, each active dock worker moves one space towards the Steam next to it, and each inactive works towards the nearest crate. And then, how do them water effects work? I just want to check. I'm not going to go through all the guides, but I know that one has a special space. So, open spaces. Treat the ocean spaces as blocking spaces, meaning a hero cannot enter or move through them. During a hero's move or movement effect, they may reveal, not discard a card with a mobility hero icon and treat spaces normal during that movement. The low tiger ally treats all ocean spaces and normal spaces for movement purposes. So it's a different thing. It's one of the expansions. Okay, so yeah, if they have a little movement icon, then they can move through them. The other way to get around that is if there's ever something that says move or move up to this many spaces, they have to go in a line. But if it's just like move to any space, it's basically them flying, so they can just go wherever. They can get right around that stuff. Alright, then we have our different schemes, or our different locations, or whatever. You have Shipping Bay, which has activate for each minion in a Shipping Bay, resolve the overtime effect on cargo. If no minions in Shipping Bay, place one on it. And then any dock worker has mindless waiver. Activate, resolve overtime effects on cargo. Then each dock worker hero deals a hero near them 2 damage. So that's kind of odd that they just say 2 damage versus inflict 2. But I'm not, it's alright. Eastbound ship, departing. Activate. For each minion in the eastbound ship, resolve over time on cargo if no minions are placed when on there. Very similar effects. And then we have Hooked, which is a minion. 1 health, 1 defense, 2 inflict. This card is flipped to the side, place it next to eastbound ship, and move each minion on eastbound ship to the enemy space nearest to its team. Minions on the map are hooked. Each time a minion will be placed on eastbound ship, place that minion in the empty space nearest to the Steam. Container crate. Activate for each minion on the container crate. Resolve overtime. Effects on cargo. If no minions are in container, place 1 in it. And then we have the Foreman, which is an enemy. 10 health, 1 defense, 2 inflict. When this card is flipped to the side, place 1 bystander with the Foreman inactive. The foreman is a dock worker. Active. Inflict. Then, if the foreman is active, she moves 3 spaces towards the nearest steam space. Otherwise, she moves 3 spaces towards the nearest crate. And then, southbound ship. Activate for each minion in a southbound ship. Resolve the overtime effect on cargo if no minions. Keep repeating the same thing over and over. But then we have the Low Tider Ally. It's 5 health and 1 inflict. When this card is flipped, place the Low Tider token in the nearest water space and you gain control of this card. I thought this was I was thinking it was in the expansion. Exhaust. Discard 1 Justice token from this card to move Low Tider up to 3 spaces. Then Low Tider may attack. Targeting a space in 3 spaces of him dealing +1 damage if he's in a water space. That's kind of fun. You get a little ally to help you out. Alright, then we have 2 copies of Taking the Bait. If there are 1 or more hooked on the map, each hooked on the map moves 3 spaces towards the hero nearest to it and inflicts. Otherwise, the villain steams. 2 copies of On the Clock. If cargo is on its loading side, each hero in a steam panel resolves its overtime effect. Otherwise, a crisis occurs. Then each hooked on the map, if any, moves 3 spaces for the nearest and inflicts. 2 copies of Controlled by the Cargo. If cargo is on its departure side, each dock worker moves 3 spaces towards the hero nearest to them. Then deals nearby hero 2 damage, otherwise the villain steams. Then each hooked on the map moves 3 spaces and inflicts. 2 copies of Handle with Care. For each inactive dock worker, the hero must either resolve overtime effect or draw 1 villain card. If no dock workers are inactive, the villain schemes instead. Then each hook moves 3 spaces and inflicts. And then finally we have the Crisis card again. Alright, our third one is going to be Automated Chaos. We will have remove mainframe from the issue deck, place it on the issue play area, place 1 issue token from the token on the robot head, space nearest to the server room. This is a brink bot. Special, brink bots are enemy figures that occupy spaces. Each time an active brink bot activates, it moves 3 spaces towards an elevator space or a door space. Then flips. Each time an inactive brink bot activates, it flips to its active side, then inflicts. Each time an active issue token enters the door spaces, it moves to this card. Issue tokens on this card represent stolen brink bots. If there are ever 3, they lose the game. So basically, you gotta keep defeating these bots so they don't pop up. Here's mainframe. Each brink bot has a base inflict of 1 with 1 health and 1 defense. During their turn, the hero may also discard 3 justice from this card to defeat the brink bot, 5 justice for the phase 2 brink bots. Each time an active brink bot would is defeated, it's flipped to its inactive side. Each time an inactive brink bot would be defeated, it is moved to the robot space nearest to it. Basically, you gotta defeat each twice to reset them. Program activate each brink bot. Crisis activate the brink bot furthest from the door space, then activate 1 inactive brink bot. So our different locations are going to be server room, compromise the network. Activate, place 1 minion in the server room, then roll 1 hero die. For each minion in the server room, if at least 1 BAM is rolled, resolve the program effect on mainframe. Then we have Dr. Vivian Graham, who's a bystander. Plays Vivian's token in the control room. She cannot be rescued. Action. If you're near Vivian, gain 2 clues. Activate. Discard 1 per player justice from this card to resolve the program. Effect on the mainframe. Then move Vivian to the Steam panel with the most minions. If we go to our control room, we get reprogramming. Activate, place one minion on control room, then roll one hero die for each minion in the control room. If at least one BAM is rolled, resolve the program effect. And at the console, we have automated sequence, crisis. When this card is split, place the card in the issue play area and then issue token on the control room. This is the console limit, one console Steam per panel. Each time this problem is solved, discard each justice from this card and remove one console from a Steam panel. The hero solves the card still gains a clue. Crisis. For each console in the Steam panel, either discard one justice from mainframe or activate a brink bot, then place one console in the Steam panel if able. Then we have R&D. Modifications. Activate. Place one minion in the R&D and then roll a hero die for each minion. With at least one BAM is rolled. Program effects. They keep repeating those. Then we have an enemy. We have Crabman. 12 health, 1 defense, 4 inflict. This card split plays Crabman in the R&D Steam space. Each time Crabman kidnaps a bystander, he activates the brink bot nearest him. Activate and inflict, and then move 3. And then finally, we have the Weapons Lab. Place one minion on Weapons Lab, then roll the die. Do all that stuff. And then we have Brink Bots, Phase 2 Brink Bots. Each time Brink Bot is upgraded, replacing issue token with a Phase 2 Brink Bot token. The Phase 2 Brink Bots are always active. Each time a hero defeats a Phase 2 Brink Bot, the hero gains one clue and replaces the token with an inactive issue. This card remains in play. Activate, upgrade 1 Brink Bot. So you have 2 health, 1 steam, and 2 inflict. Then we have 2 copies of Reprogram. Activate 1 Brink Bot for each console in play. No consoles, villain steams. 2 copies of Weapons Hot. If Phase 2 Brink Bots in play, upgrade 1 Brink Bot. If none is upgraded, villain steams. The Eccentric Genius. If Crabman is in play, he activates the nearest Brink Bot near him, otherwise steams. 2 copies of Buying Time. Discard 2 Justice from Vivian Graham. If unable to, the villain steams, and then Crisis. So the plot cards, other than like the main steaming things, lots of the other ones are fairly much the same. It's activate one thing that helps them, activate the villain, activate this thing, otherwise they're going to steam. Alright. Our last issue is going to be volume 36. Issue Overview. Remove the Lost Tome from the issue deck. Placing this issue in the play area. Research side face up. In a minion during each. I'm guessing it's a little book, like bookcase symbol. Special, each symbol to not contain more than 1 minion. Each time a hero defeats a minion in that space, they gain a clue. Each Steam panel can only have a maximum of 3 issue tokens. Not the 4th issue be placed. Instead, placed on the Lost Tome. During a hero's solve, they may discard any number of success icons from the results to discard equal number of issue tokens from their Steam. So we're going to start with the Lost Tome, which goes with the villain. If this Steam ever has these 4 issue tokens on it, discard them and flip this card. After I solve, a hero may discard 2 per player justice tokens from this card to discard 1 issue token from this card. For each book space, for the Crisis, each book space, either place 1 minion on it or place 1 issue token on the Steam panel nearest to it. And then when the tome is found, if the issue ever has 3 tokens on it, the villain's opening dimensional rift and the heroes lose the game. Solve, hero may discard 2 things in a Crisis. They're both the same, so I'm not going to keep rereading them. The Archive. Oh, that was actually the 4th book. I hate the date. This is the 4th one. I don't know why they do that in that order. Alright, so we have the circulation desk. Missing Librarian. To solve, a hero may only target this problem if they discard one clue card. Activate. Place one issue token on the circulation deck, then you must either place one minion on a book space or an additional issue token on the circulation desk. And then we have Ji-Yu-Ri. When this card is activate, place her token on the archives. Instead of discarding this card when it is solved, discard each justice from it and move her to any Steam panel. Discard each issue token from that Steam panel. Active. Place one issue token on that person's Steam panel. The Acquisitions Office. Search records. During a solve, hero may only target if they discard a clue. Place one issue token on the Acquisitions Office, then you must either place one minion on a space or an additional issue on the Acquisitions Office. And then we have Focused Search. Each time a minion is defeated, place one Justice on this card. Activate. Discard one per player Justice from this card or the villain's schemes. Digital Collections. Cyber Scripts. During a solve, you only target if they place a clue, otherwise place one issue token on here. So it's the same effects, just with different names. So I wasn't too worried about reading all of these. This is important by Dr. Meanier. That's funny. False Leads. When this active issue token will be discarded from a Steam, it is flipped to its inactive instead. Active. Each hero flips one inactive issue token on a Steam panel to its active side if able. And then we have the archives. Reorganization. During a solve, a hero can only target this card if they discard a clue and then place the additional clues on the archive. And then we have another enemy. We have Mr. Meanier. Or Mr. Meaner. Oh, I did it. Like Mr. Meaner. Ahaha. It took me a second. 10 health, 2 defense, 1 inflict. This card is flipped. Mr. Meaner. Token on the Steam panel and furthest from you. Activate. Move 3 and inflict. Then each hero in 4 spaces of Mr. Meaner must discard 1 focus. Two copies of multitasking. For each minion on a book space, place one issue on them in the Steam panel nearest to them. Then place one minion in each book space. If no minions are placed this way, the villain schemes instead. No Tome to Lose. 2 copies. So then we're going to have each hero on the Steam panel places 1 issue token in the Steam panel. And each hero on the map must either place 1 minion in a book space or discard a focus. And we're going to have 1 copy of Digital Goose Chase. Place 1 issue token on the digital collection, so you can either place 1 minion on a book space or the villain schemes. Checked out. So the same thing, just with circulation. We have 1 for new arrivals, for Acquisitions Office, and 1 for the archives and digging deep. And then the crisis icon. Alright, so the last couple of cards we're going to get is we're going to get a couple more characters. We're going to have Nemesis. Or Nemesi, because you have 2 of them, maybe. So this is snares. So Nemesis are basically extra, essentially villains that don't have a deck. So they're going to pop in, and you can actually make the game more difficult. They still have hidden icons, so that way, this is what you put in if you're playing 5 or 6 players, because otherwise, if you're only playing 4 players or under 4 players, and you have to reveal, you put 1 token in for each character. This just gives you 2 more options if you're playing 5 and 6 for the hidden tokens. So then he also gets a little miniature, much like the regular villains. So he can activate just like a villain for doing different stuff. He just doesn't have a deck of cards. So setup, none. Special, each time a hero enters Snare's Steam panel, Snare inflicts that hero. Activate. Snare captures a bystander nearest to his Steam space. And then we have, it flips over, he has 8 health, 2 defense, 4 inflict on the hunt. Each time Snare captures a bystander, a crisis occurs, or activate, inflict a hero within 4 spaces, and then move 4 towards the nearest bystander. And then we are going to have our other ones. We're going to have the Lovecraftier. So he's kind of cool. Skull, he's got some tentacles. So he has 14 problem. He has X inflict. So X is equal to the number of the villain's current Steam panel. The Lovecraftier advances with the villain. Activate, roll 1 die. For each minion in Lovecraftier's Steam panel, inflict at least 1 damage rolled. Lovecraftier inflicts each hero. Now he only has 4 health, but he has 3 defense and 3 inflict. So he's not, if he can do damage, he's easy to kill, but actually doing damage is really hard. Activate the Lovecraftier in a peril space. He inflicts targeting each hero, then moves 5 towards the nearest peril space. Alright, then we are also going to get 6 copies of the game rounds, which are just going to explain what to do. This is our mentioned employee icons, the villain's turn, what the hero can do, and then the issue turn. So nothing super exciting there, just 1 for each player. I kind of get why they added stuff for 6 players in here. Only because if you bought like the Kickstarter, you would have had Kickstarter stretch goals. Otherwise, every other expansion has 2 characters in it. So you would have the 6 characters anyhow, and since they have all the tokens for those 2 characters anyway, you'd have enough in each set. That's kind of that. Alright, then the last thing I go through is just the clue deck here. So the clue deck is going to be the same in every single expansion, and it's nothing super exciting. So we're going to get 2 copies of villain sightings. So you get clues by defeating Steams, defeating minions, or rescuing bystanders. So you can either discard this to either solve, or you can add 2 extra dice. It's just extra actions to do other than your regular cards. We have 2 copies of Trial of Evidence, which lets you move. 2 copies of Weak Point, which lets you attack. 2 copies of Point of Interest, which says you may either place 1 Justice token on each problem card, or place 3 Justice tokens on 1 problem card. And 3 copies of Encouraging Lead, which lets you draw a card. 2 copies of Hacked Comms, exhaust an enemy hero in the threat area. 2 copies of Local Assistance. You may solve targeting any peril card in play. 2 copies of Time to Spare, heal 3 damage, and 3 copies of Shared Intel. Choose a hero to gain 2 focus. Yeah, some nice extra little cards. One of those things with this type of game is I wish they would have, if you're gonna have those, it's like, okay, they're kind of neat, kind of generic-y. I almost wish, though, the expansions, though, had some slightly different ones. I get the idea that every one of the bigger box expansions is you can play by itself. So they probably didn't want to add, but still, that would have been more interesting or more of a reason to buy different expansions. I mean, obviously, besides characters and that. It just, if I have all these, I guess it's my only issue with all the repeating stuff in every expansion. Because everyone's a standalone game. So that means now after I've got the base game, plus I got 3 standalone expansions, is I have all these, all the tokens basically outside of the special bystander or villain tokens, or minion tokens and stuff. And then maybe a few of the, like other minions. All the rest of them, the issue tokens, damage tokens, all that stuff, and that tiny clue deck are all repeated. I can basically just toss everything outside of, once I own one game, I can toss everything out from every other game. There's no reason to have that many. And then even still, if they're not one of the unique bystanders or enemies, if they're just the generic characters, or like minions, you probably don't want to keep them anyhow either, because that is part of the game, is your minion pool can't run out. So if there's like 6 minions in every game, and I add them all together, I'm never gonna run out of minions. So you almost need to toss all those away too. You can't combine them. I mean, you could keep all the other tokens for if you're playing like a 4 or 6 player game, to have, some on this side, some on that side. I get it. Having more players, especially 6 players, having extra damage and stuff tokens and having spread around the table is a little bit nicer. But you don't need them, ideally. Again, maybe for 5 and 6, you need 1 from each set, just to make sure you have enough of those tokens. But then after that, any other boxes, you shouldn't need any. Alright, that's what I got. Thanks for checking out this video. Check out the expansions. I'll do the videos for them too. Then also make sure, even if you don't check all the expansions, check back in with I'll do a separate video. I'll probably just add it in with some of the Kickstarter video to check out that one at least, because I'll show you how well everything fits in the box. So if you want to see that. Alright, thanks, bye.